Word Balloon, celebrating 16 years of excellence for you.
The Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Time again for another Word Balloon Live podcast, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Happy to welcome Ron Marz back to Word Balloon. Good to see you, man.
Hey, John, how are you? Honestly, to tell you the truth, I was just here for the Hulk, but apparently it's not going to be seen tonight. So
yeah, I'm sorry about that. We had to preempt him. It'll be a special two-parter next week. But we are here to talk about your new collaboration with Andy Lanning and now, goddamn, Rick Leonardi, right?
Last I looked, yeah, unless he's been replaced and nobody told me.
It's Resolution, and I'm getting to the there it is. I got at least there you go. There's the graphic, and I'll be putting up more visuals. But before we get started talking, because there are so many great visuals on there, and Rick and Andy are on the video, I wanted to show the video before we start talking, if that's okay.
Yeah, fire away.
All right, here we go, everybody. A look at Resolution.
Hi, I'm Ron Marz, and I've been writing comics for 30 years, including Green Lantern, Silver Surfer, the epic Marvel vs. DC crossover, Star Wars, Witchblade, Batman crossovers with Aliens and Tarzan, and more recently, DC's Endless Winter event with my most excellent friend, Andy Lanning.
Hi, I'm Rick Leonardi. I've drawn comic books for 40 years. My works appeared in Uncanny X-Men, Cloak and Dagger, Spider-Man, Nightwing, Batgirl, Star Wars, Justice League, and Spider-Man 2099.
Hiya, I'm Andy Lanning, and I've been writing and inking comics almost as long as Ron and Rick. Probably best known for writing Guardians of the Galaxy, as well as Nova and the Legion of Superheroes. As an inker, I've worked on books like Infinite Crisis, The Fantastic Four, Ultimate Spider-Man, and Kingsman, The Secret Service.
I'm teaming up with my friends Rick and Andy for a comic project we're very excited about. We're joining forces for Resolution, a brand new cosmic graphic novel. And we're launching it on Zoop, so readers can come along with us on the journey and contribute directly to the book's creation.
With Zoop's comic-centric platform, we'll be able to maintain full ownership of our creation, crowdfund the production of the graphic novel, and put it directly into the hands of you, the readers. But to do that, we really need your help.
If you're a fan of the kind of cosmic storytelling that Andy and I have done on Silver Surfer, Green Lantern, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Legion of Superheroes, and of Rick's gorgeous, graceful artwork, Resolution is for you. It's the story of Zan Maddox, once one of the galaxy's greatest heroes, but now a retired recluse.
But when the galactic warlord who was once Zane's arch-nemesis returns, she is forced to confront not only the failures of her past, but the deadly present that needs her to become a hero again. It's full-scale cosmic adventure, all delightfully drawn by the legendary Rick Leonardi.
The Resolution graphic novel will be an oversized hardcover, so you can enjoy the art and the story in all of its glory. These first edition hardcovers are the deluxe edition and will be strictly limited. The campaign will also feature other rewards, including a deluxe print set by an all-star array of artists, original art, sketches, much more. We'll have stretch goals, including bonus stories drawn by some of our favorite artistic collaborators.
Keep checking the Resolution campaign page on Zoop for regular updates featuring more art, designs, and rewards.
We're so excited to bring Resolution into the cosmos for what we hope is just the first of many volumes. We hope you'll come along with us and see where this adventure takes us. Thanks so much.
Looks good, man.
That was obviously a highly professional production that was certainly shot in the same studio where I am right now.
That's good, man. No, it looks great, and goddamn, the art looks spectacular. One of the reasons why I wanted to show the video, and I got more of some of Rick's beautiful work here to look at. Yeah, tell me. First of all, you're on Zoop. So
You're on Zoop.
You're not on GoFundMe. You're not on Kickstarter. Why Zoop? How did that collaboration begin?
Mostly because we were asked. I'm friends with Jordan Plosky from Zoop, and he pinged me a note probably in the spring and said, "Hey, this is my next venture. We're doing a comic-centric crowdfunding platform. Would you be interested in being one of the first projects? Do you have something you want to do?" So I went to banged on Andy's door and said, "Hey, what do you think? Do you want to come up with something and run up the flagpole?" And he said, "Yeah." And he had the kind of the nuggets of the idea for Resolution. And then we roped Rick into it, and we more recently roped Andrew Dahlhaus into it to be our colorist. And then obviously suckered in a bunch of our friends to produce portfolio pieces for the companion portfolio. And it's up and running right now. So we'll grind this out for the next 3 weeks and hopefully get this thing funded. And and then make the book. We're obviously in the early stretches of putting the pages together and kind of creating the thing now, which gives us an opportunity to kind of bring the audience along for the ride. Let everybody see the behind the scenes stuff, the creation of it, and actually kind of take part in the creation and direction of where we take this thing.
Okay, you're about a fourth of the way, a little over a fourth of the way there, as far as your goal. Last time I looked.
Yeah, we're getting there, and hopefully we will continue to get there. We've got the usual rewards of the hardcover graphic novel itself, and a companion sort of making of book that will include the script and Rick's layouts, pencils, Andy's inks, some of Andrew's colors. So kind of a step-by-step behind-the-scenes process book, as well as the portfolio. And then, other reward add-ons that you can do, like have the book signed, have Andy and or Rick do sketches in your copy, original art sketches from Andy and Rick, and the original art from the book itself. The cover is up for offer right now, and the double-page spread that Rick just completed is up for offer as well. And in this case, because Rick's on this side of the Atlantic and Andy's on that side of the Atlantic, Rick's pencils and Andy's inks will be on separate pages. And if you pick up one of the original art rewards, you'll get them both. So you'll get Rick's pencils and you'll get Andy's inks, which are done on Blue Line from the scan of Rick's pencils. So you get that opportunity to frame the pencils and the inks right next to each other.
That's terrific. Absolutely, man. I can show the Zoom page. I can share that in a second, and we can go over some of the other stretch goals and different tiers of support that you guys are offering. And let's put that up there. There we go. So again, you can see the cover there. And so far, 102 supporters. That's great. Just under 3 weeks to go. And for $15, if you want a digital copy of the graphic novel, boom. $40 for the hardcover. And then, as you say, the companion kind of process book along with the hardcover. Very cool. And then, the portfolio is really exciting. And again, in the video, you show the various artists that are going to be part of the portfolio. I was, even going back to the 70s when I became aware of portfolios. I always loved that stuff.
Oh, yeah. That's actually something we talked about when we were discussing, what should we offer? And I think Andy and Rick and I are all sort of in the same generation. Rick obviously started in this business when he was 12. And we all remember those portfolios in the 70s and 80s. In fact, one of them being the Cloak and Dagger portfolio by Rick Leonardi, which I think I have actually 2 copies of. I think I've got 2 copies of that thing sitting over on a bookshelf. So, I love those things when I was a fan, when I was a kid. So that's kind of the model that we went after for this, and just roped in a bunch of our friends, Phil Jimenez, Liam Sharp, Paul Pelletier. Paul Pelletier's piece is done.
Okay.
It's penciled and inked, and Andrew's coloring it right now. Bart Sears, Ron Lim, a lot of the usual suspects. Our buddy Greg Broadmoor from Weta Workshop in New Zealand did the earlier painted piece that you showed. Greg did that, and there you go. That Greg Broadmoor guy, he's all right too.
Lord, that looks amazing.
Yeah, I mean, literally, Andy asked Greg if he had time, and literally the next day that showed up.
Wow.
So, that's how Greg works, and he actually also did a different version of that piece. That's rather than a horizontal, it's a vertical. So we'll find some way to use that as well, because he said I couldn't decide which one I like better. So here, have them both. So it's very lovely to have friends like that. And I'm looking at some of these other. Is this Rick's art? Yeah, this is all Rick's design stuff. This is just his kind of exploration of what these things could look like. That's the villain's ship. Okay, and then I'm assuming that's our villain. That's the villain. That's our warlord opposite number for our hero Zan Maddox. Right, and there she is. There she is twice, actually. She's the story is actually told in 2 time streams. We have flashbacks to her days as a hero, which is obviously that heroic pose up there. As a member of the Resolute is our cosmic team of heroes. Heroes from different worlds, blessed with powers, of energy powers. And then in the present, she is a retired recluse, which is the figure you see on the bottom there, living on a remote planet by herself. And people from her past come to find her and say, your arch nemesis has been found. He's been sighted, but he's infirm and he's vulnerable. So let's go get him. Wow. Okay. Let's go, saddle up one more time and go get him, and frankly, collect the reward for it, because we can use the money. Cool. So her decision is, do I want to do that again? Do I want to put that part of my past to bed finally? Or do I want to stay here and live this life? And the decision she makes is what affects the rest of the story, affects the rest of the universe ultimately, and hopefully will allow us to spawn, a few more volumes in this series so we can tell the complete story.
It was earlier this year, Infinite Horizon, right? That was the DC event that you and Andy co-wrote together, right?
Endless Winter, yeah. It
Endless
was,
Winter. Excuse
Endless
me.
Winter. You can tell because everybody's, in snow on the covers. So yeah, that was. I mean, Andy and I have co-written stuff before.
I was going to ask. Go on.
And we're actually co-writing stuff now that hasn't been announced yet. In addition to this,
Cool.
Yeah, Endless Winter was that kind of landed on our plates, and DC said, well, what how much of an appetite do you have? Can you this is a 9-part, 200-page story. How much of it can you handle? And we said, well, we'll do it all. It's easier to be one-stop shopping. So we, in the summer, we were knee deep in winter snow for the entire summer, just cranking out these scripts and working with a myriad of wonderful art teams to do the book. I think the hardcover collection of that is actually coming out in November, maybe.
Oh, great!
Because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to put out your Endless Winter hardcover collection
in the middle of
the summer. So,
were you affected at all? Because it seemed like you were very prolific during what became known as Pencils Down during those early days of COVID, and that. Did it affect you in terms of existing gigs?
No, not at all. I mean, everything that I was doing was just full steam ahead. And I'm obviously blessed to be in that position. So I'm thankful. I know a lot of people weren't as fortunate, and some projects that were put on hiatus are always going to be on hiatus. They're not going to come back. But and very, very much in the midst of that, we were working on Endless Winter, and it was juggling a lot of scripts at a lot of different times. So that totally took up a bunch of space, and the stuff I'm doing for Heavy Metal, the Almost American miniseries I'm doing for Aftershock, which is a real life Russian spy story, and some other things that are in process but haven't been announced yet. They were all just keep doing what you're doing.
That's great.
And I think that, honestly, that sort of, it bore out for most of the stuff, because I think, nobody, obviously stores took a hit because they couldn't be open. But in terms of moving books, I think all the publishers did pretty well, because there was a need for entertainment. There was a need for, I'm stuck in my house for 8 months. What am I going to do? Now, like the answer for freelancers like me was, you're just going to do the same damn thing you've been doing for 30 years. It's, but for a lot of people, this was a whole new world. This was a whole different way of existing. I almost felt bad at points because, people would say, well, how are you making out in the pandemic? Well, I've been quarantined for 30 years, frankly. It's just, with the exception of going into the office at CrossGen for 4 years, this is just how most freelancers live their lives anyway.
But that's by choice. And I can appreciate it. In fact, Orlando and I were talking about this yesterday as well, and a couple others, like Jeremy Hahn. I mean, it is easy when it's your choice to sit down and lock yourself in a room and work and everything, because in the back of your head, well, when I want to get a coffee, I will, or when I want to meet somebody for lunch, sure, I will. And then obviously that's taken away. So I can appreciate for those that, were kind of frozen for a while. But you've been this creator-owned self-starter for years, so, many of the most recent years.
Yeah, I think it's, working at home is something you learn ultimately. Like you have to learn it by doing it. And I think there are a lot of people that probably aren't cut out for it, or didn't think they were cut out for it before they were forced to do it. But you find a way, because like when I would tell people, I work at home. My commute is down the stairs, and I'm wearing a ratty pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt. And people would just look at you like you had two heads. Before they asked you to drive them to the airport, because, well, you don't have a real job. You got time, right? So it was, people would always say, well, how do you get stuff done? Like, how do you just not play video games all day? And, the answer is, well, if you don't do anything, they don't pay you. Like, the checks stop coming if you don't do anything. So if you need more motivation than that, I don't know what to tell you.
You're right, but also it is like, I mean, again, I think a lot of us learned a different routine. I mean, I've been doing word balloon, but then it was exclusively what I was doing. And, I mean, I had my bouts of the weird COVID dreams, things like that. Did you have any of that at the start of the nonsense?
Not really. I mean, because it was just really, it was no different, like other than, you don't go to the bookstore and hang out for the day and do some work there, or you don't go to a coffee shop and just to be in a different space.
Yeah.
Which I think was always important. It was good to be in another, it was good to be, amongst four walls that didn't look like these. And good to be amongst people, because ultimately what we write about is people, whether they're, alien heroes from the Resolute or, silver dudes on surfboards or whatever. I mean, ultimately we're writing about people, and you need, I think, to be around people to kind of keep your batteries charged, to eavesdrop, on the couple next to you at Starbucks that's having a fight, and or the guy complaining about his boss at the table on the other side. It's that sort of stuff is just grist for the mill, even if you don't realize it at the time.
Again, more images of Rick's wonderful work here. It looks great. I'll be honest, when I first saw this image, I didn't realize your protagonist was a woman, and that's great. And it really is kind of, calling on the classic science fiction tropes of, and also even Westerns of the old gunslinger being asked to come back. And I like the idea that it is a woman in this space opera rather than a man. And obviously that means some of her choices and motivations might be different than a man's.
Yeah, we kicked it around. We kicked around, should it be a human? She's not from Earth, so she's as human as Luke Skywalker is. Okay. But she's not from Earth, so we're not dealing with that sort of backstory or anything like that. But we kicked around, should it be an alien? Should it be a male or a female? So and we ultimately felt like making it a woman, giving her some backstory that will be revealed as we go through the graphic novel, added some juice to it, added some drama to it that I don't think we would have had were it a male character.
Fair enough. I am interested in some of these other projects you mentioned. Tell me about this Aftershock book, Almost American.
Almost American comes out I think first week of September, first issue, and it is the real life story of Jan Neumann, who is that's not the name he was born with, shall we say. He and his wife fled the Soviet Union, or Russia, I should say, the former Soviet Union, in 2008. They were both intelligence operatives for the FSB, and then after that worked for Russian banks, which might as well be the FSB.
Yeah.
So Aftershock came to me and said, "Hey, we've got this real life story of these two people who are real people and you can talk to, and we've got all of the articles that were written about them, and can you turn this into a comic?" So I looked at the material and I said, "Yeah, this is cool. It's actually sort of harkens back to my journalist days when I was, a 20-year-old kid working at a newspaper. It's, taking a bunch of information and distilling it into a story. And obviously this is a comic story, not a journalistic article, but it's kind of the same thing. Like what works, how does it fit? And so in the ensuing time, I've become, good friends with Jan, and it's kind of weird to have your ex-Russian spy buddy texting you on a regular basis.
Wow.
In fact, he texted me the other night and he was like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something, but I don't want to put it in a text." And I'm like, "Oh shit, is this where I find out I've overstepped the bounds?" It's not that sort of thing, but it was just funny. So that's being drawn by Marco Castiello, who is a terrific Italian artist. sort of influenced by Kevin Nolan and Yannick Paquette, I would think, is probably really gorgeous stuff, and doing a hell of a job, because this is a real story with real people in real locations. So not the easiest assignment to bite off. So that's a 5-issue mini, first issue out in September.
That's great, man. And I'm, Aftershock is a sponsor of mine, and I have to say I've enjoyed their crime and spy stories of late. Red Atlantis, Stephanie Phillips worked on that, and this sounds like a great premise. And certainly, even though this is someone that left in 2008, it's and as you mentioned, not only the FSB, but also the Russian banking industry. I have a feeling we're going to be hearing a lot about the Russian banking industry.
Yeah, oddly,
as certain cases develop.
A lot of that stuff, a lot of the Trump connections to the banks was going down. And Jan had some stories to tell me.
I bet. Wow. Do they figure into the book?
Like a lot of the stuff that's in the book was in the there's a big Newsweek article and a Guardian article. There's the sort of the start of a prose piece, a lengthy prose piece that's got a lot of detail in it, and then just kind of Jan and I talking, and him telling stories, and him telling stories about riding roller coasters with FBI agents, and like Jan's wife would get off and say, "Let's go on again," and the FBI agents would throw up in the garbage can because they'd had enough. So there's just all sorts of stuff like that people are going to think this is made up. When this book comes out, there are certain incidents that are going to seem like, well, that didn't really happen. Well, yeah, it did actually. Wow. So it's a truth stranger than fiction kind of thing.
That's great, man. I'm very excited, and man, I am with the FBI guys when it comes to roller coasters. I think I stopped riding those in the 90s, and I remember being in Vegas on the New York roller coaster.
Oh, I've done that one.
I could not eat literally for like a day after that, where my stomach just remained queasy, and it was just like, yeah, I'll just stick to drinking right now, and just drinking water and iced tea. I'm like, yeah, my stomach, and I'm like, all right, I think we're done with roller coasters now. That's it for me. Week. What can I say?
I think the last serious. I mean, I like roller coasters. Last one I did that was pretty intense was the Indiana Jones roller coaster at Disneyland Paris. And the one thing that I don't dig on roller coasters is like when you go upside down when it's like that's not for me. Like if you're a dude that wears glasses, that's not for you. But look, Indiana Jones, I had to do it. Like I had to, if it was, walk across the fire pit, I was going to do it because it said Indiana Jones on the sign. And I got onto that ride, and where there's a long queue that you go through. Although, like the time we were there wasn't a queue at all. You just walk right on.
Wow!
Late in the season, and a chilly October day outside of Paris, and I was, oh man, because it's set up like mine cars from Temple of Doom.
Oh wow, fun!
And this is going to be the coolest thing ever. And I get in the ride, and we're starting, and it's it's not a huge roller coaster; it's fairly tame. Okay. And then I realize, oh, there's not one loop, there's two, and you go through it frontwards and backwards. Oh. So, but at that point, nothing you can do. You just got to go.
When I went to New York, you're in the kind of harness thing, and they've got the two. They're padded, right? But they've got the two things by your head, and literally, I don't know what happened, but I was like clunking on them continuously, and literally, it was like a boxer was just popping me in the head for like 20 seconds nonstop. And I mean, again, it was padded, but still, I'm sure that added to my queasiness or whatever.
And you paid good money for it.
I know, exactly. And it was great because really it was me and two other guys from our sports radio station. And all three of us are like, yeah, I don't want to do it. I don't think we want to do roller coasters anymore. And the oldest guy, who's like 10 years older than me, he was in his 50s at the time probably. He's like, God damn it. I came here to have good food and enjoy myself, and I can't eat for a goddamn day because of this fucking roller coaster. I'm like, yeah, man, I know. Oh, we were so angry. It was very funny. Very, very. And it was, we would go 2 weeks before Christmas when Vegas is dead and nothing, like there might be one convention in town, which was fine. But also, unfortunately, that meant that less entertainment options. A lot of shows would take a Christmas hiatus around that time. And it was like, you want to see Willie Tyler and Lester? And it's like, nah, not really.
And nobody
in the 90s.
Nobody does.
So, yeah, it was, thank God at the Vegas Hilton at the time, the Star Trek experience was happening.
Oh, yeah.
And I would go to the Vegas Hilton and just live in Star Trek. It was the best. So that was my reprise. So that was that. But anyway, back to the books. That's great, man. And again, I'm excited for this book. How long is the graphic novel? How many pages?
80 pages total. 48 pages of story and art, backup material, and we've got some stretch goals that will include 6-page stories by artists that we haven't announced yet, but they might in fact be pals that are already doing portfolio pieces. So the notion is that if we can, hit certain stretch goals, we'll get a couple of backup stories. Okay.
I'm scrolling here. I want to see some of these beautiful pieces.
That's the double-page spread that Rick just finished yesterday, in fact.
Wow.
It's about half inked on Andy's drawing table right now.
Beautiful. That's excellent. There's that image that we had earlier, but it's maybe, about around the same size, a little bit big. It's a little bit smaller. But these are great. I love that scythe, or how do you say it? Sickle or whatever that the villain has.
Well, we just say axe, John. I don't know about,
all right, fair enough.
Midwest, but we just say axe. That's and a lot of this is just Rick doing what Rick does without a lot of. We talked about stuff. We've got a design document, but these things are just kind of Rick riffing on what he thinks would look cool. And he, then he sends them to me and Andy and goes, well, what do you guys think? We're of course falling all over each other at the glory of it all. This is Paul Pelletier's portfolio piece.
Wow.
By Andy.
Yeah.
That Andrew Dahlhaus is coloring as we speak.
Jesus. That's awesome, man. Very, very cool. Looks great. Looks excellent, man. So yeah, looking forward to hopefully not only making the goal, but hitting the stretch goals here.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience because obviously Zoop is a new thing to a lot of people, to most people. Sure. Launched at the beginning of June was the first campaign. So you've got to get people's awareness up of what it is, and then get them to the page, and then sort of help them navigate it. Because I think this is actually something that, the Zoop guys and I discussed right after the campaign launched. We kind of went, oh, wait, there's not everybody knows how to navigate the page. Something as simple as that. Like, we're all pretty familiar with what a Kickstarter page looks like and where the rewards are. And so this is, this is different. This is a bit simpler in terms of where things are arranged. But the higher price rewards, the sort of unique rewards, like you can get the cover, you can get that double page spread we just showed, you can have the original art for that. You have to scroll down a little bit further to access that stuff.
Right.
If you're not aware, you just don't know. So it's we're all sort of going on the learning curve together.
I understand, and I noticed too. Obviously, you've got a tier for retailers to be able to buy into it as well. How much hand selling to the retail market are you guys doing?
Well, it's Jordan and Eric from Zoop are kind of handling more of that than we are. Although, like retailers that I know, I've dropped them a line to say, hey, we're doing this thing. You want to get in on it? Or even, if retailers are interested in an exclusive cover variant or something to give them a unique version of this thing, we're totally willing to do that too.
Good.
it's it's you. The reward is you get to do. The reward for us is you get to make the book you want to make in the way you want to make it. It's an oversized sort of French album size hardcover, and we're doing that because, well, that's what we wanted to do. That was the package that appealed to all of us the most. So that's what we're doing. So that's the reward for us. Is nobody's telling you what to do. Nobody's telling you how to do it. You just make the thing in the way that you want to make it. The other side of the coin is you got to work to spread the word and beat the bushes to get people aware of it and get retailers attuned to it. It's a blessing, but you know that there's extra work that goes with it.
Understood. So beyond Zoop, how different is this from? Was it Optimal Press? What was your previous?
Ominous. Yeah, I mean, Ominous is still going along. I'm still involved in it. But this was an opportunity to just try out something new. And frankly, since it's a comic centric platform, we kind of wanted to throw our support behind it too, because I think the more options people have to do their books and specifically to do their comics, the better it is for all of us. So if we can help Zoop be a viable place for people to do their things, and they've had a bunch of enticing campaigns already. The first two funded. The one that debuted after us is a sketchbook by Art Sears. Things are rolling along there. So if this can become a viable alternative to Kickstarter, not necessarily even saying it's a everybody's got to make up their minds as to which one fits their needs better.
Sure.
But the more options that we all have, I think the better off we are.
I completely agree. And here's the URL, everyone, to go to support Resolution. It's zoop.gg/C/resolution. The letter C for my audio audience and everything. But yeah, zoop.gg/C/resolution. So that's where to go. No, that's great. And yeah, I wasn't sure how many other campaigns Zoop was, getting underway. So that's great for Bart. And does, again, I'm glad, as you say, I mean, GoFundMe, Kickstarter, it's interesting how they all are building. And I guess Zoop is, in the midst of building its own community in the way that GoFundMe and Kickstarter have.
Sure. Well, I think it's to me, the intriguing part is that it's a comic centric platform. Obviously Kickstarter is the big gorilla on the block, and
sure.
has the kickstart is a verb, right? Again, Kickstarter does great stuff, but you're also swimming in a sea with a lot of other people when you're on Kickstarter. There are pluses and minuses to everything, but we thought we'd try this out and try to take some of the stuff that really works well on Kickstarter and bring it here, and some of the stuff that maybe people don't like as much on Kickstarter. Try to find new ways to do those things.
International shipping, is this available for?
Yeah, you can get it
audiences
anywhere. Hopefully the U.S. postal system is still functioning in March 22 is when this we said this will be in your hands. We've given ourselves a lot of runway to get it done, because as I think most of us have learned with Kickstarters, best of intentions, and not everything works out like you think it's gonna. Particularly when there's a pandemic.
And also when we had a president that really was trying to, it seemed, kill the Postal Service in a lot of the moves that he was making prior to the election, and not only about the election, but that knucklehead sort of, and forgive me, folks, if you're Republicans, I don't mean to disparage, but really when you've got a president that's like, do we really need a post office? And it's like, yeah, tell the people, and I never knew this, but there are people that live at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and the post office is required to give them service. So the mailman is riding the donkeys down at the bottom, and there's people living there that need their medication or whatever they get by mail. And thank God there's a post office for shit like that.
Yeah,
ultimately, it's not there to make money. It's there to serve the people.
Yeah, ultimately, to not to sidetrack us, but the fact that I can put like a 50-cent stamp on an envelope and send it to somebody in California, and it gets there within a week or two, boggles my mind. Like we grow up with it, so we're used to it. But the fact that, that's what you can do, and that's how cheaply you can do it. When you do a Kickstarter, you're generally using media mail because you're sending out a book.
Yes.
The fact that you can, just bring these stacks of media mail boxes to the post office, and 7 to 10 days later, they're all where they're supposed to be, is just stunning. And we've spent the last 2 years trying to tear the thing apart. So hopefully Louis DeJoy's looking for a job in 3-4 months.
Indeed. Absolutely. You've also, Ron, been doing a lot of writer seminars the last couple of years and stuff. And how is that going?
It's good. I'm doing regular comic book writing classes at the Jacob Kruger studio, which is based in Manhattan, but I've actually never been to the studio. It all sort of came together post-pandemic. We started talking about it in 2019 and trying to figure out a way to do it. And then the pandemic hit, and we're like, all right, well, let's try to find a way to make this viable via Zoom, which is how we do it. So I teach a 4-week class, which is like basically boot camp for this is how you write a comic. This is everything you need to know to produce your own comic. And within the 4 weeks of that class, meeting once a week, it's a 3-hour class, Wednesdays, as it is now, although we might be adding another one, so we'll see. By the end of that class, you should have a professional level 6-page script that you can hand to an artist to have drawn.
That's great, man.
So it's I'm a big fan of you learn by doing. And that's especially true in comics. The best way to learn how to make comics is to make comics. So the class and the homework is, you write a 6-page script and we sort of hone it and beat you up as the weeks go by to make sure that by the end of the thing, you have a 6-page script that's ready to hand to an artist that's of professional quality. So we do that, 4, 5, 6 times a year. Or maybe even more, depending on how the demand is. So there's the 4-week class. There's a workshop that we do where, if that's what your thing is, we meet for 3 hours on Tuesday night, 3.5 hours on a Tuesday night, every other week. And people that are enrolled in that bring their 10-page segments, and we do a table read on the stuff and sort of pull it apart and how can we improve it. And I'm thoroughly enjoying the workshop stuff because it's like everything that's in that workshop is to me of publishable quality. And a few of them we're almost done with the current iteration of their, it's 80 to 100 pages graphic novel. And, they need to be out in the world. It's just really good stuff. So we do the workshop. There'll be a second workshop opening up in probably September because the one that we have now is full. And then I do one-on-one consultations, of which I've done like 6 this week, I think, which is working one-on-one with people who have a project that they want to get off the ground. And, they submit pages every other week. And we put our heads together and I give my sage advice, whatever that means.
That's great because literally last night talking to Steve Orlando, one of the viewers was asking about because he was talking about the importance of mentoring and the advice that he's gotten from people like he mentioned in particular like Joe Kelly and Steve Siegel, who he started talking to them when he was like 12 years old, and I'm reasonably certain your name might have come up as well. But that's good to hear that, go ahead.
This is a social business like any other, but I think this one is particularly social. And there are very few handbooks on how you do this. There's the DC Comics Guide to Writing and Penciling, and
Denny O'Neill's great writing book, yeah.
But there's not a lot of the John Q. Public has no they have a pretty good idea how a movie's made, right? You build some sets and you make special effects and you get actors. People know how a movie is made. Virtually nobody knows how a comic is made. It's still alchemy for a good chunk of the audience, especially people who are fans of the movies but have no idea how the source material is put together. So part of any of this stuff that I'm doing with the Jacob Kruger School or studio is kind of peeling back that curtain to say, this is the nuts and bolts. This is what a script looks like. This is how you need to break down your script. This is how you put dialogue in your script so that you can give it to a letterer and the letterer can put it on the page.
Sure.
So it's my hope is that everything we do in any of these things is purely practical. It's about it's not, look, there's certainly some theory, and we do we do Wallywood's 23 panels that always work, and
great.
That sort of stuff as well, because if you're gonna write comics, you need to be able to think like an artist thinks to put that sort of material in your script.
Definitely.
So there's that sort of stuff as well, but a lot of it is just the pure practicality of, look, this is how many panels you can fit on a page comfortably compared to the kind of material you have. This is, an even number of panels on a page has this effect. An odd number of panels on a page has this effect.
Wow.
So it's really a lot of it is what Jim Starlin taught me, 30 plus years ago when we sat down and he showed me how to write a comic. The phrase that he used, and is the one that I use, the first night of every class, is every panel in a comic is a frozen moment in time. And your job as the writer is to figure out which frozen moment needs to go in which panel.
And also the fact that you're dealing with, especially at the beginning, a 6-page story is fantastic. And again, you'll forgive me, but referencing other conversations I've had even this week, I had Pat Mills on a couple days ago, and he's got his new sci-fi anthology called Space Warp. It very much is obviously in that 2000 AD format, and truly the Brits have it down to a science and haven't abandoned the idea of, hey, you got 6 pages. Well, goddamn, you told a hell of a story in 6 pages.
Yeah,
or 4 pages.
Yeah, you can do beginning, middle, and end in a 6-page story. What I tell everybody in the class is that if you can get a handle on writing a 6-page story, you can write a 20-page issue. Because a 6-page story is harder than a 20-page issue.
Absolutely.
Because especially in shorter form comics, short stories or single issues, what you're doing is all about real estate. And you only have so much real estate. Your job is to decide how to best use that real estate.
Agreed. And, and forgive me because you get hit by, an 80-page giant or a 100-page special. And I know we had the 80th anniversary of Green Lantern. I'm sure you had a story in there, didn't you?
Yeah.
And how many pages was that? Was it like 8 pages?
It was an 8-page story. Daryl Banks and I did an 8-page story. I believe there were 10 8-page stories. And it's odd because obviously I've written a bunch of short stories, and
sure.
I just wrote not that long ago, I wrote a 6-pager that's going to be in the Deadbeats 2 anthology from Wave Blue World that just got funded via Kickstarter. Mostly because I like writing short stories. I like that format. And I'm working with a terrific Mexican artist named Salvador Velasquez on it. It's the difference between an 8-page story like we had in the Green Lantern anniversary issue and a 10-page story is a lot more than 2 pages. I don't know why the math works out that way, but an 8-page story is short and a 10-page story gives you a little bit of room to stretch your arms. And I was talking about it with Daryl Banks when we were working on it. And I said, man, I squeezed it all in and I'm happy with it. And Daryl did a great job, but if we had had 10 pages, I would have had a little more room to roam.
Sure.
Oh yeah, he knew exactly what I was talking about. And the difference between 8 and 10 is a lot more than 2 for whatever reason it works out that way.
I get it, man. No. And I really, and especially at DC, although Marvel just did it too with their Pride anthology that they put out last month. But I've really noticed that, DC obviously has been dipping in not only for anniversaries, but, they have the Valentine's anthology, they have the Halloween anthology, the Christmas anthology, and it's great. And then there are vets like yourself and guys like Wade that can handle doing a short thing. But I'm really glad that some of the younger writers are, finding a way to tell effective stories. And, I mentioned Stephanie Phillips earlier with her Aftershock book, but I know a year or two ago she did one of the Valentine stories for DC, and it was this 8-page Wildcat story. And I'm like, God damn, you did great. And I know she's not as experienced as you or Mark Waid or some of the others and everything. And I'm like, that's terrific. And again, it's an important skill to learn.
It's a great training ground, and it's a great, that's the way you used to break in. Certainly before my breaking in the early 90s.
Yep.
In the 70s and 80s, you broke in by doing backup stories.
Yes.
I saw not that long ago, beginning of June, I did a signing for Torpedo Comics with J.M. DeMatteis and Paul Pelletier and Joe Staten. And, I know one of the things that J.M. talks about all the time is breaking in, doing, short romance or horror or whatever stories, and doing them quickly, like turn this around in a weekend, kid. 5-page stories or 7-page stories.
Yeah.
And that was the training ground. That was, the training ground for actually doing the material, doing the job, but also doing it in fairly short order. Like the industry is ripe with stories of people who get their opportunity, like pencilers who, hey, here, we need a 10-page story. You've got 10 days, take this home and do it. And, lo and behold, the samples that got them the gig, they did 1 page a week. That 10-page sample took them 3 months to draw. And all of a sudden, you're on stage in the spotlight and you got 10 days, man. And, a lot of guys you never hear from again. I would hear stories from editors that would say, oh yeah, I sent this guy home with a short story and I never heard from him again. And that was not terribly unusual, but it was the way they kind of separated the people who could do the job and the people who could do it as a hobby because they just couldn't keep up.
Yeah, because it's deadline entertainment, and that is something that I try to as an armchair observer of the comics world. And when these questions come up during my show, and it's how do I break in, and especially how do I break into DC and Marvel, and it's like beyond your drawing skills, are you able to make deadlines?
Yeah,
and that really is key. And I know of a few examples where someone at the big two is extending a hand to a newcomer, and the newcomer couldn't make the deadlines, and the book was scrapped because of it. And it's like, sorry, but that's 50% of the gig, if not more, of can you get it done on time?
Yeah, what we do is the shotgun marriage of art and commerce. And the commerce part is it needs to be done when we say it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the editor is going to lie to you and tell you a fake deadline because that's how that works.
Sure.
And once you're in the business long enough to know that, the editor knows that that you're being lied to, but nobody says anything. Like there's sort of the false kindness of, well, I know you're lying and that I know that I'm lying, but we won't talk about it.
Right.
But it's, ultimately you do this long enough and you realize, okay, it can't be perfect. Like it's done after a certain point, done is better than perfect. And the editors have to work on that basis because the book's got to go out. If you're doing your own thing, again, that's why we gave ourselves a bunch of runway on resolution. We gave ourselves the time to make sure that we can do it like we want to and still hit that, hit that March 2022 deadline of having the book in your hands.
That's great, man. As we close, any thoughts on some of the Marvel TV or even the DC TV of late? Are you watching not only all the Marvel shows on Disney Plus, but even, I'll tell you, one of my favorite things is on the CW, and that's Superman and Lois. It's the best Superman story I've watched in years.
I see stuff here and there, but the harsh truth of being a person that works in comics is you don't have time for a lot of that stuff.
Absolutely.
It's oh, what comic did you read this week? Dude, I haven't read a comic in a month because it's just like I should. And I want to more than anything, but when the choice comes down to I got to get another 5 pages done tonight because which is literally the case. When we hang up, I'm going to sit down and write 5 pages of the Swamp God serial that I'm doing for Heavy Metal, because the artist in Italy will be done with pages probably by Monday, and I want to make sure that he keeps going. So yeah, would I much rather sit down here and read comics for an hour tonight? Absolutely, but that's probably not going to happen because the work's got to get done.
I'm with you, man. Absolutely.
As many people have found out, when you work at home, you're always at work.
I understand. Salah has a great question, and we might have gotten into it in previous conversations, but he wants to know what was CrossGen like to work for them, especially given everyone was required to work and live in Florida. Very true.
Boy, that's a whole show by itself. That's a whole show. I think we actually did a fundraiser for Hero Initiative. We did an online thing with me and Tony Bedard and Mike Perkins, I think, telling the CrossGen stories that we could tell.
Understood. Yeah.
But CrossGen was, people were like, oh, you had, did you live in a compound? No, we didn't live in a compound.
Yeah, it wasn't a cult.
wasn't Jonestown, for God's sakes. It was, we had an office that we went to, just like if you work for Disney or Sony Animation or whoever it is, you go into an office. So creatively, I found CrossGen to be great. The creative teams very much had creative ownership of their books. We didn't have any editors. The editors were basically the writers. The writers kind of coordinated stuff, and we coordinated with production to make sure that the books were on time. We made stuff up and we printed it. It was pretty simple in that sense. And being able to work with the people that were on your creative team, like in the same room, was great. Because it was very collaborative. It was very much what do you want to draw? What do you not want to draw? And being in the same studio with, Butch Geis and Steve Epting, Jim Chung, Bart Sears, Brandon Peterson, Greg Land. We had the cream of the crop artistic talent in that building.
Oh God, yeah.
Everybody learned from each other, and everybody pushed each other to be better. I mentioned on Twitter earlier this week that Steve McNiven came in as an intern, basically. I think I wrote the first story that Steve ever drew.
Was that Meridian?
It was Mystic. He did a couple of Mystic.
Oh, Mystic. Okay, sure.
And in fact, the story behind that is Steve. He did some test stories and did some pinups and stuff like that. And when he was ready to jump on his first storytelling, they had me write a backup story in Mystic for Steve to draw, and he was nervous and excited and really, he was very keen to get working on it. So he was supposed to start on it on a Monday, and he came into my office and he said, Steve, being Canadian, very polite, came into my office and said, if there's any way you could have that story ready for the weekend, I'm going to come in over the weekend so I can get a start on it, because I really want to do a good job. And if I take extra time, I think it's going to come out better. So I said, this is like on a Friday. And I was like, yeah, I'll finish the story tonight and I'll leave it on your chair, chair in the in the cubicle where his drawing desk was.
Sure.
I said, it'll be ready for you in the morning. So I stayed late that night and wrote a pornographic version of the story. Extremely explicit. And left that on Steve's chair. And so Saturday morning, the phone starts ringing. And it's Steve. And I just didn't pick up for a couple hours.
Poor Steve.
So finally I picked up and I'm like, hey, man, what's going on? Any problems? He's like, I can't draw this. I'll get fired. I'm like, Steve, look, you're the intern. You know, I'm a professional. Just draw the story like I wrote it. Like I don't want to pull rank here, but I'm going to have to. And he's like, I can't draw this. He said, Steve, I don't have time to deal with you on this. I gave you the story. Click. So I waited like 10 minutes and I called him back and I said, all right, the real story's like in the lap drawer of your drawing table. Not the other one.
Terrible. All right, remind me, wasn't The Path you and Bart Sears?
Yeah.
Love that. That was my favorite cross-gen thing that you did. But also, what was the name of you and Jim Chung? Didn't you guys do
Cyan? Yeah, Jim and I did Cyan for
so beautiful. Oh my God.
Years.
Yeah. Oof. So those were my two favorite of your stuff. But yeah, rattle off the other titles you were doing.
Jim, at Crush, and I did Mystic, which with Brandon Peterson, John Dell inking, which I liked, but it wasn't a great fit. Although I'm told that I think it's Mystic 15 where we put Harry Potter and Snow White and the Seven Dwarves and Doctor Strange and Dr. Fate and virtually anybody we could think of from pop culture magic, like in a big double page spread.
Sure.
I'm told that issue is going for like $50 on the back market now because it's the first comic appearance of Harry Potter.
Wow, that's hilarious.
So yeah, when we reprinted that in a trade paperback, we got a cease and desist from Disney because they were pissed. So we had to change everything. So when the reprint version in the trade paperback is not those characters, it's kind of versions of those characters. But I still love that issue. So I did Mystic and Cyan were my first two titles, and then I took on The Path and Sojourn as well.
Sojourn was great. Lord of the Rings, basically that kind of format and stuff, which wasn't being done in comics. And it's like, it's about time, guys. You got to give CrossGen credit for doing that. Absolutely, man.
It was, when we were starting to talk about like what the titles should expand into.
Sure.
I was the one that said, well, we need to do a high fantasy book because in 6 months or a year, whenever it was, Fellowship of the Ring is going to be in theaters, and it's going to be the biggest thing ever.
You're smart.
And so for Sojourn, they just, I just went into my office for like 3 days and made the whole thing up.
Wow.
Drew amazing. Maps and kind of came up with the whole story. And Greg Land was actually supposed to draw Meridian when he was coming into the studio. And Greg was, he's not the right guy to be drawing that book.
Deadline. Yeah.
And he kind of is the right guy to be drawing this fantasy book that we did in Sojourn. So we ended up having the thing switched, and Steve McNiven ended up on Meridian.
Right.
Just did, just sort of had this artistic growth.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Rocket. When, once he wasn't working with me, he got real better.
I knew a lot of young women that really liked Meridian, and
were
really happy to give the book to their kids. Yeah,
it was absolutely like the perfect book for the target audience that it was. But because I think it was a quieter book, it wasn't a big action book. There were scenes of people talking and going places.
Daughter. Yep.
It forced Steve to figure out, well, how do I make this look cool, even though it's kind of static? Right. So I think that ultimately really worked for Steve's artistic growth because he was forced to approach scenes in a way that he had to be inventive about what he was doing, and he got better every issue. It was just very apparent.
That's awesome, man. Dude, I hate to do this, but I got to wrap up. I want to remind everyone, of course, the main reason we're talking, which of course is Resolution. There is the URL for the crowdfunding platform of Zoop, zoop.gg/C, the letter C, /resolution. A great collaboration with Andy Lanning and Rick Leonardi, and of course, Ron Marz. And Ron, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this, as always. Come back in the fall when the Aftershock book is ready. I'll be happy to have you back and talk about that, and also the heavy metal stuff too.
It sounds good, John. It's always a pleasure. One of these days, we're going to just do a show and talk about nothing but boxing. But
please, you are welcome to be on the Big Bout podcast. I'd be very happy, and especially maybe at the end of the summer after we have all these great fights coming up, to sit down and talk boxing with you.
Totally. Let me know. I'll tell you some. When I was a sports writer in the Hudson Valley is when Mike Tyson came up in the Hudson Valley.
That's
so
awesome.
I saw his first fights, and we saw his first few fights though, because ultimately, like the entire sports department at the newspaper was like, "Oh, Tyson's fighting, we're going," and we were all just like, we had never seen anything like it. So
that'd be terrific. Yeah, man.
Let's tell some tales.
That'd be beautiful, man. Everybody, thanks for watching. A couple hours from now, it's going to be me and Gabe Hardman and company talking Kinescope. A look at the early days of television. And our first subject is the great Rod Serling 1955 teleplay Patterns, also made into a movie in 1956. We'll talk about both. And it's a great all-star cast and a fantastic early example of Serling's brilliance pre-Twilight Zone. So look forward to that. That's happening after it'll be 12:30 Eastern, Ron's time, 9:30 Pacific, and 11:30 here in beautiful Chicago. So I hope you'll join us in a couple hours for that. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay healthy. Thank you, everybody. Did it go?